As you know, Preschool in a Box is the one thing I wished I had when I started my preschool. It will help you get your preschool started quick and easy without wasting time or money doing the wrong things in the wrong order. Now, as a member of Preschool All-Stars, you can get your Preschool in a Box for 50% off. Here's a sample for you to enjoy. In today's sample of Preschool in a Box, you are going to watch Preschool Building Pros and Cons. There's a reason why I suggest everyone should start their preschool in their home first, whether that's local or online. But some people just think, oh, my very first step should be go to find a preschool building. And no, that's not your first step. So watch this video. You're just going to be able to watch just a little bit of the beginning of it. This is actually about an hour-and-a-half long video, but enjoy what you can see, and I hope you get Preschool in a Box so you can unlock the rest.
All right, and welcome. This is our Profitable Expansion Blueprint. It will give you the ins and outs. If you are looking to get a building for your preschool, if you are either starting a brand new preschool and want to get a building instead of doing it in your house or renting a church, or if you want to actually expand your preschool and grow it, right? So we have those two different variables. Now, this could work if you're going to be leasing a property, but it's also going to give you some really good information if you're going to buy a property as well. So let's get started. The very first thing we want to talk about is to determine if you should even get a building or not. And let me tell you a couple different scenarios and tell you some of my history on why it's really important to get down to the bottom of this. Because some people literally start out and they're like, awesome, I want to have a preschool business. And they just immediately, their number one step is to go find a property. And that's like step 52 in my book. There's so many steps before that. Obviously in Preschool in a Box, it lays the foundation. Because you have to make sure that all of your bases are covered. You know your target market, you know how to reach them, you know how to do your marketing, you know how to enroll students, all these other things before you ever just go get it and jump in a building. I think a lot of times people, maybe see Shark Tank, or they maybe think of other businesses like, oh, franchises. And in order to do that, you just spend a ton of capital to be able to get your building and to get your business started. But that's not how I view business. Personally, I view business that you should be profitable from month one, if not month 3 at the very latest. Like, it is not my hope that you take on a ton of debt and put your family in a difficult situation where you're just putting all these hopes and promises into this preschool business, specifically because of this building. Okay. Now, the preschool business can be done in a wonderful ways with your home. That way, there's no additional cost there. Or, of course, you can even just rent space in a church, right? Or so that's actually my preference, is for people to get started that way, because you don't have a huge liability on your shoulders of a lease agreement. Or, of course, if you're buying a property, of the mortgage. So take all of this with a grain of salt, but also realize that based on all the people that I've seen go into this, the people who go in saying, oh, I'm looking for a building, it's those people that actually never start. If that's their step number one, they never start, because it's a huge hurdle to overcome. And especially without knowing all the business side of the business of the preschool, and also whether or not you can actually enroll students in your concept, you're setting yourself up for a massive amount of, like, in my opinion, it's debt, because you're literally committing to a 1-year lease, a 5-year lease, a 3-year lease. And in my opinion, that's debt. Okay. So I don't want to commit to that before I even have a working model. So my first preference is obviously to do it in your home. If that's not going to work out, go rent in a church. There's no reason why those two scenarios shouldn't be able to work out. Anyways, so, of course, you know my story. In about 11 years ago, I started a preschool in my home. And then as we grew, I was like, you know what? Let's see what we can do with this. We did it first in my living room and kitchen. And then once I got pregnant with my 4th child, we moved it into our garage that was converted for that specific purpose. So it wasn't in my house anymore, except for it's in our garage. And then once we had 48 students in that garage, of course, not at one time, they wouldn't fit. There was only 4 classes of 12 students each. And so once those classes were all full, there was a period that literally I doubled enrollment over the summer without having an actual building for me to move into. And you've heard that story in my other video, so I'm not going to go into a detail here. But the gist is there was this point when I was bursting at the seams, basically, with enrollment. Obviously I had to, because I didn't even have a building yet, I had to do it in my garage. And then the other 48 students were going to, they started literally preschool that year in my home, in my kitchen, living room, and a side bedroom. Just a side room. So I literally had 96 students in my home preschool for the period of about 2 to 3 months, because I didn't know where we were going to go. But I had enrolled everybody because we had gotten to a point where we were bursting. Like I kept getting all these calls, and I didn't have spots for them. And so it was like, you know what? Like, if this is going to be the time, there was this tipping point of when, and so when is that tipping point, right? Like, when is the time when you should expand your preschool? So we just talked about if you don't have a preschool, this kind of moving back into the side. If you do have a preschool, the tipping point really is, we'll talk about that more, but for me, it was when I was getting calls so frequently that I did not have spots for them, okay? And they were literally willing to register their kids right there, but I literally was full. So in getting all of these calls, of course, I was recording all their phone numbers, over the course of a month or so. I realized, holy cow, like, we're getting to the point so well known. It was only about 3 years into our business, because we first started out with 24 students. The next year we went to 40. The third year we went to 48. And the fourth year we went to 96. So we were definitely making a name for ourselves. And that was the tipping point for us when we knew it was going to be profitable for us to expand into a building, because I didn't want them all in my house. I knew that we needed the other 48 students in their own place so that we could eventually get out of our home, even the garage, and move all of our students over there if we wanted to. We didn't have to, of course, but if we wanted to. And then also we could, in the future, possibly sell it, or just expand into different things, like eventually our all-day preschool program, our private kindergarten program, our advanced pre-K program, things like that. So because of all those things, it made the most sense, because we had ideas on how we could grow. And we also had that base of people wanting to register and willing to pay a registration fee. And we were full in the so this was, like enrolling for the fall, basically. And we were in March and April when we were enrolling for the fall. And so when we did all of our enrollment, boom, we're full for the fall, and it's only like April, okay? So when you have that, then you can say, you know what, we might have an opportunity here, okay? If you're full, like in April for the fall, you still have May, June, July, and August for enrollments, additional enrollments. And I guarantee you're going to get those calls if you're already a preschool. So that's when that's the tipping point, in my personal opinion. So let's go through this here, now that you kind of know our experience. And then I'll also share a story with you about how we wanted to expand even further to possibly get a second building, but we'll share that in a minute. So the first thing, I want to make sure you really understand what it means when you commit to a lease. First off, you're going to be signing what we call a personal guarantee. In the lease of almost in my history and experience, in almost every single lease I've seen that's in the market, there is a personal guarantee on there that basically means that when you sign this lease, you as your person, your assets, your personal assets, are guaranteeing that you will pay for that lease regardless, okay? Regardless of what happens. It's not like, maybe you can file a bankruptcy and then the lease goes away. You want to talk to a lawyer, obviously, about that. But when you're signing that lease, this has nothing to do with that that LLC thing. Do you remember that? How we talked about, if you are signing up as a sole proprietor for when you're doing your business, all of your assets are tied. Your business assets are also tied to your personal assets. And so if somebody sued you as a sole proprietor, then they would have access to all of your personal assets in order to pay for the judgment of whatever the judge said you need to pay to that person. So but the LLC would cover you, right? The LLC is like, it forms a bubble around your personal assets, which means you can't touch them, right? So in other words, if your business goes under, well, at least nothing on your personal side goes under. A lease is a little bit different. A lease is literally committing you to a personal guarantee. So it has nothing to do with your business. It's connected now to you. And so if your business goes under, guess what? You're still on the line for that lease. Now that's a little bit scary, knowing, like, for instance, we got into 5-year leases. Well, what if 5 years is a long time, right? Like we have all intents of this working out, but what if, right? What if you're 3 years in and all of a sudden something happens and then your business goes down? At that point, then you have to say, okay, well, either can we find somebody to come into our lease and we, therefore kind of just transfer the lease to someone else. That can always work, or you can work it out with your lease agent, the person who is the property owner, to try to work with you. Okay. But it's a serious thing, guys. It's not something you can just walk away from like, hey, sorry. I mean, we're talking no different than apartment leases or mortgage agreements, okay? Like a lease agreement, same kind of very serious thing. It's not tied to business assets. It's tied to you personally. So I want to make sure you are very understanding what a lease means. Okay, also, if you're going to be getting into a building, 99% of the time, you're going to have to be licensed by the state as a daycare. Of course, that's not a problem. They classify preschools in their daycare category. It just falls under the daycare category. But some people don't want to get licensed, or they can't get licensed because they don't have the right degree. Maybe like they're in California and they require a certain degree, or New York. By the way, those are the only 2 states. I think there's one more, maybe a couple more, but that require a specific degree, but almost every state does not require a specific degree, which is awesome. But do make sure that you know your state's licensing requirements inside and out, because once you move from a home preschool into a center preschool, okay, so they call it, would be more of a center. Once you do that, then you fall under different requirements with your licensing. So if you can, by the way, if you can get licensed in your home, it should not be a big deal at all to get licensed in the center. But I'm just saying, if you've never been licensed before because you've been operating it out of your home at a smaller capacity, or just period, never been licensed before, you want to make sure that you meet those center requirements, okay? And then, of course, it's not a big deal to be licensed as a daycare. You just operate as a preschool. All right, the next one is really knowing your numbers. How much tuition do you actually need, and how many students do you need to enroll in order to pay for the building? Okay, why is that so important? I see so many people just like, again, they think of like, oh, well, startup capital and loans and grants and Shark Tank and franchises, and we'll just, put out X amount of money in the beginning to get the business started. Okay, that's really cool. If you have an extra 20 grand lying around and you want to invest in your preschool, go for it. If you want to mortgage your home and get a home equity line of credit to do this, go for it. But please know the reality of like simple business. Please don't just go out with this amazing idea like, I'm going to go get a building, it's going to be gorgeous, and I'm going to fill it up with furniture. Guys, that's not the hard part. Anyone can do that. I'm not even joking. You find the right property, you buy the right furniture, you have the money. Anybody can do that. What actually people can't do all the time is sign up students. Okay, that's the actual thing that you need to make sure that you know how to do. Again, Preschool in a Box, my success system, all those things are going to help you. But just because you know how to go get a property and put furniture in it does not mean your preschool is going to be successful. I have always lived off the philosophy of reinvest in your preschool. So when we started out, guys, we had like a picnic table or a buffet table. We had a buffet table and 2 picnic benches, 4 posters on the walls, toys from my kids' bedrooms. That was my preschool. That was our first year. And then, of course, we reinvested the next year with our registration fees, and we got more cool stuff, right? And we just kept adding every single year. But like, when you guys see my classroom pictures, please always remember that was at the end of my preschool, right? Like that was when we sold, like, that was years into our programs. So don't ever think that you have to start out with that. I would much more prefer that you were financially sound in the mind to say, I'm going to make sure that this concept works for my family, that I actually enjoy it, that it's something that is I'm passionate about and I want to stay in it for several years, and I'm going to commit to it before you just go out and get a building. Like, I can't even stress that enough. And I like what I'm trying to do right now is I'm actually trying to, like, for the people who haven't started a preschool, I'm trying to show you there is a barrier. I'm trying to put a barrier to entry here. Okay. Normally I'm like, go for it, do it. Well, that's when the stakes aren't that high, but you throw stakes on that are really high, like a lease agreement. And I'm going to make sure you know the severities of it. Okay, here we go. So, when you're doing the numbers, it's literally a numbers game. Okay. So if your amount that you actually need to pay and save for repairs or maintenance or anything, or triple net, and we'll talk about triple net in a minute. You're like, what is that? But let's just give it a ballpark figure of $2,000 a month. Okay. How many students do you need to have in your preschool to make sure that you can make that payment, right? Not even pay yourself, but make the payment. Like, you have to know that. And you have to know, like, do I have a savings account somewhere of a couple grand where I know that I've got like 3 to 6 months of lease payments in the bank just in case, right? Because once that lease starts, it's game on. That lease payment is due. Is your preschool started that exact same day? I don't know, right? Like, are you getting lease payments for that month? Or is it like preschool's not actually starting for 2 months? So how are you going to pay the lease payment? So knowing exactly how much is the bare minimum for operating your preschool is super important. Now, that's not just that's just the lease agreement, right? Or the lease payment and your property. But what about other things like your arts and crafts or your field trips or your, just whatever else you need to do for your preschool, right? So you have to, like, know your numbers really, really well and know that base amount. And then I would personally say, make sure you have 3 months at a bare minimum, 3 months, guys, of money in the bank where you can cover that payment if needed, right? Hopefully never you need it, but just in case. Okay, also, this is what we're talking about here. You see NNN, triple net. That is what that stands for. Triple net stands for the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance on the building. Now, when you see, and we're going to discuss this in a minute, but when you see other places showing, $1,000 a month or something for their rent, okay, what you don't see is this other thing called triple net, and it's so freaking sneaky. Like, I didn't even know about it. Most people don't know about it until you actually go to sign a lease and you're like, wait, what? Like, why is it $1,500 a month, right? I thought it was $1,000 a month. And, oh, well, that's triple net. The triple net is $500 a month. You're like, what the heck is triple net then, right? Okay, triple net is, so if you have someone who owns a property, right? He owns the building. He doesn't want to have his property taxes and insurance and maintenance come out of the $1,000. He wants it to come off the top. Okay, so he's going to charge specifically separately for that, called triple net. Now, almost every single commercial lease that I've seen deals in triple net. It's very rare to not have a lease that doesn't have triple net. Thankfully, we were able to get a lease without triple net, and I would 100% encourage you to find a place without triple net, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But just, we're talking numbers right now. So if we had to say, $1,000 is your rental, is your monthly lease rent amount, then I would add 50% on top of that for your triple net, just as a general guide. Okay, it could be less, it could be more. Okay, sometimes I've seen them literally double. So the monthly payment is $1,000 and the triple net is $1,000. Like, it's insane. Okay. So I would just on average say 50%. So then, assume that that's what your monthly amount is going to be. And then also, if you're not going to do a triple net, but maybe you can get a lease like I suggest, where you are in charge of the repairs. Okay. So the maintenance, the repairs, things like that. So if they were in charge of it under triple net, if your bathroom got plugged up with the toilet, they would be responsible to get the plumber out there and pay for it. If anything happened, it flooded, the carpet needed to be fixed, the shovel needed to be, the sidewalk needed to be shoveled, things like that. They would pay for all of that, the landscaping, everything. So that, I mean, it's kind of like if you're in a rental apartment, it's very similar to that, where you have a landlord who pays for all the maintenance and repairing and just making sure that it's in top quality. That's what TripleNet really does for you. So there is a good thing on that side, but it costs you a pretty penny, and honestly, you don't need it. If you don't get the TripleNet, then I would estimate about 25% of your lease amount, saving that every single month into a different account for repairs. It's your repair budget. So for instance, our TripleNet, our lease that did not have TripleNet in it, but we were required to be responsible for repairs and maintenance, basically said the only thing that the landlord would cover would be the furnace, the air conditioning unit, the roof, and the water coming into the building. Anything else, we were responsible for it. So that would be landscaping, snow shoveling, any plumbing issues, any like maintenance of the air conditioning unit and the furnace so that it didn't go out. Let's see what else. We also had
Wasn't that amazing? Oh, sorry I had to cut it off early, but I hope that you've enjoyed this sample training. If you want the rest of the training and you'd also like to get 50% off your Preschool in a Box, then I invite you to join Preschool All-Stars.
Hey, have you heard about Preschool in a Box? It's literally the one thing I wished I had when I started my preschool 10 years ago. It would have saved me so much time and so much money. Instead, I did the wrong things at the wrong time. Waste of time, I tell you. I can't wait to tell you all about Preschool in a Box. All the things I wish I had, like curriculum. Oh my gosh, can I even tell you how many hours I spent every single night on Pinterest and Facebook groups and the blogs and Google trying to find activities to do for lessons the next day. Or forms. What the heck was I supposed to give to my preschool families? What was I supposed to include in a policies and procedures handbook? Or marketing. How was I supposed to sign up kids? I had a preschool to fill and I had money that I needed at the end of the month, but how was I going to get that tuition, right? All of those components are inside of Preschool in a Box and a whole lot more. I want to get you Preschool in a Box. I've got an exclusive opportunity for you. When you join our Preschool All-Stars membership, not only will you be surrounded by myself and hundreds of preschool owners cheering you on during your journey, you get an exclusive discount on Preschool in a Box. I am talking out of this world. When people see it, they kind of lose their mind. They're so excited, ready to grab it right away. I can't wait to get you your exclusive discount on Preschool in a Box. Just join Preschool All-Stars. Click the link in the description or go to preschoolallstars.com. It's going to be like Christmas.